What's going down, everybody? This is Brother Stevanius, Command Center Wargaming. Now, in this video, we're going to be having a look at the Ashen Circle for the Word Bearers in the Horus Heresy. This is a tactical video. We will be going over the unit's pros, cons, strategies, and tactics. We'll also have a look at some of the arguments against the unit, and we'll finish the video up with some play suggestions and things like that. Now, I'd just like to thank the guys from Mornival Zone Mortalis Mondays. So, Matt Lee, Paulie C, Alex Wu, Alec, the other Alex, Sam, Jesse, Dan, all the guys, everybody in their chat, okay, from our Zone Mortalis Mornival chat there, for helping me out, giving me some of their experiences with the Ashen Circle, because I had seen them play a lot in first edition, but I had a limited, experience with them in version 2. The experiences that I had with them in version 2 of the Horus Heresy were a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. So I'll talk about that later on in the video. But they really sort of helped me get a gauge on the unit. And I must say, I'm very impressed once I sort of got on there and actually had a look at some of the strategies that you can use them for. They're actually a very, very, very good unit. So if you're into strategy and tactics videos for 30k, the Horus Heresy, or 40k as well, why not subscribe to the channel? Because it would be great to have you here more often, all right? And if you don't want to subscribe, that's all fine. Liking, commenting, sharing the video, that's amazing as well. It really helps to support the channel and helps us to grow. Also, with the comments, everybody, I just want to be very clear, all right? If you disagree with me, please say it in the comments, right? These videos are here for the community, all right? These videos are here so that if someone comes along and they want to pick a unit to play and they're not sure about it, they could come along, they can watch me in the video, but then with your comment, we had the Western Gamer come on the Contacar video, make some really good points about that unit, okay? But what it enables people to do is to come on and have a different opinion, right? So, it's about having all that sort of shared pool of knowledge, that different opinion, then that person can go off and then, make their determination on the unit, all right? So, people's experiences with certain units are going to differ depending on their play style as well. All right, fantastic. So without further ado, let's get started on the Ashen Circle for the Word Bearers. So Ashen Circle Word Bearers come in at 125 points for 5 models. That includes the Iconoclast, the heavy infantry. All right, now they're the character in the unit. You've also got the Incinerary. They're basically just a standard infantry type of the unit. Now, all the stats, the base stats are pretty much the same. You'll probably notice that they're very similar to Marine stats. All right, with the difference that the Iconoclast comes in with 1 extra attack, which is 3 attacks, okay, on the base stats. All right, we've got a weapon skill 4, which is meh. Okay, it could have been 5, but Word Bearers, they have ways of increasing that weapon skill, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. We have a movement of 7, a ballistic skill of 4, which you don't really need too much anyway, because you're going to be taking flamers most of the time, most likely. You've got strength 4, which once again can be boosted. Toughness 4, which is stand for Marine. Now, the unit is pretty fragile, right? You've only got 1 wound. Like, even the sergeant, he only has 1 wound. All right, so I'm not really a big fan of fragile units in this game, right? Especially with most elite units having 2 wounds at a bare minimum. However, Ashen Circle is one of the units that I feel have so many other special rules, have so many attacks, have so much stuff going for them that it actually outweighs their fragileness. All right, so the unit is fragile, yes, but they're meant to be played a certain way, in my opinion, to get maximum benefit out of them. And we'll discuss that later in the strategy section, okay? But there is a certain knack to getting these guys to work super effectively. They will defeat most things in combat, but there are certain things which you have to avoid and certain ways to sort of deliver them there. All right, so leadership 9 on the Ironclast and 8 on the normal infantry. 3 up save all around. Now, it is very important to note right here that unlike the Night Raptors, who were discussed in another video, who have basically no way of getting a 2 up, the Iconoclast can actually take Artificer armor, giving them a 2 up. Now, me, in my personal view, I'm not 100% sure I'd bother with that, because chances are they're just going to get chopped down anyway, and it's 10 points or whatever that you could have spent on another body for that squad, which would be your wound in, like the meat shield to absorb the wounds. And then you'll also get all the attacks, and you'll get all the, all the melter bombs extra of that as well. That's just my opinion, but a lot of people, they do like to take that Artificer armor. Now, I know that, it's still more expensive to include another Marine over the Artificer armor, all right? But like I'm saying, when you weigh up what you get for the points by taking that extra body with all the attacks and everything, with the meat shield of an additional wound, over that, having that 2 up, which you might fail anyway, because if you charge into combat, you're going to get reacted against, or you're going to get overwatched. All right, chances are that 5-man unit is going down anyway, no matter what. Right, so it's up to you how you play them, but I just to throw that in there right now. But more about that in the strategies and tactics section. So all good. All right, now they do have a lot of special rules here. Okay, so we have the Legion Astartes Word Bearer special rule. This allows them to take Word Bearers faction traits, Rite of Wars, etc. They also have Stubborn. So Stubborn basically means that they can only ever be reduced on their leadership by a certain amount. So basically what it means is that no matter what negative modifiers are working against them, so fear or something like that, they're always going to make leadership tests at their base test, basically. All right, then you've got Crusader, which means they can sweep in advance, okay? They've also got Bitter Duty. Now, Bitter Duty is an interesting one. It basically means that only a certain HQ, certain characters who also have Bitter Duty can actually be attached to them. We'll talk more about this later, but it sort of sucks in a way because it means you can't take apocryphes, things like that. So you're very limited to the characters that you can attach to this unit. And that's why I feel as though they should be run as a bit of a kamikaze assassin team, kind of like a glass cannon assassin team. Because I feel as though, anyone who's trying to get these guys to survive, they're most likely not playing the unit to its strengths because, they're weak, they're fragile, you can't get them to survive. What these guys are here to do is they're here to rock up, surprise the enemy, shock and awe, get in there, rip whatever the hell it is apart that they're being thrown at, okay? And they'll probably die in the process, but whatever, because that 125 points, right, is most likely going to be lower as long as you keep them cheap, all right, at base cost, than the cost it is to kill whatever they're killing. So you throw them at a bunch of tactical Marines, right? I mean, obviously they're a little bit more expensive than tactic Marines, but you'll kill those guys easy. You'll sweep on, all right, consolidate, and then kill another squad. You'll get your points back. All right. But even vehicles, because you can also take melter bombs on this unit. Each guy has got a melter bomb. 5 guys will kill light to medium armor with melter bombs almost every time. And later on I'll talk about how we can go through and we can increase that ratio. All right. I personally, would run them with 6 bodies or 7 just to get that guarantee in there. But 5 is even enough. Scorched Earth is massive. Essentially what that means is that our Hammer of Wrath attacks are actually doubled. Okay, so when you're basically going to get 1 Hammer of Wrath attack from your jump pack from deep striking, all right, you are not only going to pin, which we'll talk about later, and your flamers pin too, okay, double pinning, all right, but you're basically going to get 2 Hammer of Wrath attacks for every Hammer of Wrath wound that you've got. So it gets pretty nuts, like you can see. Now, they've also got the heavy keyword, the heavy rule. So, I mean, you've got a bunch of heavy infantry who can re-roll, wounds or saves against blast templates and things like that, okay, with jetpacks, which is pretty good. I mean, look, is it as strong as toughness 5? Is it as strong as having 2 wounds? Is it is that strong? No, not at all, but it's at least something. All right, it means that other flamers, other group weapons and stuff, they're going to get a chance to, get a re-roll against them. All right, if they're hit by blast templates. Also in Zone Mortalis as well, they're going to get another edge as well, because a lot of those weapons will be rolling around there in Zone Mortalis. Okay, so we've also got the Phosphex Bomb. Now, the Phosphex Bomb would be a one-time use, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. All right, but the Phosphex Bomb is AP2, so you do get a little bit more AP2 with these guys, in addition to your Melter Bombs, but it is only one use, and it can only be put on the Sergeant, okay? It's a 3-inch blast. It has all these other special rules, like, flame crawl, and you can move the template across on a hit and everything. It's okay. It's pretty good, but again, I'm not sure for the points you would want to put it there, because on a smaller squad, because you'd want to be keeping these guys as cheap as possible, because they're kamikaze assassins. All right. However, they are limited by the elite slots a lot. All right. So a lot of people, they always want to take, like, I want to take 3 squads of these. I want to take 6 squads and just fly them around the board and just wreak havoc on my enemy and on their morale and confuse them, which they do. Because the thing is with this unit, especially because they were so brutal in Horus Heresy version 1, when people see the Ashen Circle come in on the board, they flip out because they're not sure of their rules. They don't see them as much. They remember them from first edition where we were able to give them AP2 power axes, which unfortunately we can't give them anymore, but we still have the AP3 axe rakes, which is fine. And it messes around with your opponent psychologically, and it forces them to think about those units, and it distracts them from what else you might be doing. What other shenanigans you got coming up the board somewhere else, okay? So there's all sorts of stuff that these guys are really useful for as well, okay? So we've also got the Inferno pistol on the Sergeant, all right? Now, we'll talk about them in a bit, but generally I won't recommend them because you've already got Melter with your Melter Bombs, and, you really want your Iconoclast or Sergeant to have another Flamer because that's where it's at, okay? These Flamers are very strong, they're pinning. Okay, so they're called the Akkadic Hand Flamers, right? They have Torrent. They're very, very brutal. So obviously as well, you got the jump pack, so you'll be able to move around. You'll be able to dodge a lot of fire. You'll be able to position yourself really well for really, really, really good surgical strikes. Now, so Ashen Circle, the unit pros. So what's good about the unit? Okay, well, we have Native Deep Strike, and as discussed in other videos, Native Deep Strike is not all that common in the Horus Heresy, and it basically means you don't have to take a Warmonger or anything like that to add additional points to these guys to get them to Deep Strike, all right, and they could come in Deep Striking on the board as is, all right. Now, when you're Deep Striking, you're also going to get, you're going to make the units within 12 of you have to take a pinning check. Okay, now, again, so we have pinning from coming in from the Deep Strike, and these guys' Flamers also cause pinning as well. All right, so there's all sorts of little shenanigans you can do with this. In allied detachments of Night Lords, that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to run a Night Lord allied detachment with these guys so that these guys come down, they do the pinning, and Night Lords then come in and they get their bonus extra attack from it, okay, from the Bloody Murder. Now, I would take these guys over Night Raptors any day. right? I think they're just way better than Night Raptors, you know, because yes, they have the Flamer, all right? Their weapons are pretty much the same. They also get Shred, their AP3, all right? Their Axe Rakes, but the Flamers is just where it's at. And the Night Raptors, you know, they can take 2 Melter Guns, but they don't just get as much coverage as what these guys get, okay? So, and for the costs, like, you know, 125 points, you know, like, that is a bargain for this unit, an absolute bargain. Night Raptors are way too overcosted, but look, we'll talk about that later. So we've also got the, so the Axe Rakes, they come in +1 strength and AP3. They also have Shred, right? Which is pretty epic. So you're going to be slicing and dicing power armor. You're going to be even some Terminators. You know, yes, they will still get their armor save and everything because it's only AP3. But remember, you still have Shred and everything, so you can get a few wounds up there. You have the Flamers, right? So the Adratic Hand Flamers, they have Torrent, right? They also cause pinning, and they're also AP4. So not the biggest deal being AP4 right now, but, you know, if you were fighting a militia army or something like that, but these guys are just going to melt Imperial Navy and Solar Auxiliary and all that kind of stuff. They're just going to melt straight through them. Now, it's interesting. So the Torrent rule, basically what Torrent is, right? Torrent basically says, it's Torrent 6. So what that means is that your Flamer, when you go to flame another unit, you can place that template anywhere from the model. That's what it says. 6 inches away, right? Like from your unit. So say you had, you know, it's a pretty funny comparison there. I've got our Ultramarine Primaris sitting there, but whatever. So if my unit was here and I'm going to do a Torrent, I could measure up 6 inches away, and anywhere within this 6 inches, and if you wanted to be that guy, you could come behind him too, right? Because I don't believe the rules says you can't do that, right? You wouldn't do it. It's a bit of a dick move, but like, you know, you could. You can literally deploy your Flamer template about anywhere in that radius, because the rules as written basically say that it only has to be 6 inches from the model. And it just says that the thicker end has to be towards the further away part of the model, right? So, you know, so you can't flame backwards, basically, right? Your torrent of flame has to come out, you know, as it would with a little narrow part first and then, you know, thicker later on, okay? But what that essentially means is, why that's so epic, is means you can get some crazy positioning on your flamers, right? So if you have your guy here, there's a unit here. Before, you would have had to just flame from here and then, oh yeah, I'll get one guy. But here you can come out 6 and you can literally just turn the whole template around, right? Let's use the Zone Mortalis door. And, you know, you can just turn your whole template around and you can flame completely from the side, right? Because it doesn't actually say it has to come. It could be from any point of the model. So you can get your whole unit in a rapture of flame by turning the template 90 degrees. You know, so some crazy positioning there with the torrent flamers, and that's on each guy, right? That's on that guy. Each guy there is going to have a flamer. You know, so you could do all sorts of stuff with that torrent. You can like flame around walls, flame around corners, really, because as long as the unit can see, you know, it can get to places that you normally wouldn't, and that's absolutely massive with the torrent weapon. So Hammer of Wrath we've discussed, and their Scorched Earth, you know, gives them Hammer of Wrath 2, right? A Sergeant or the Iconoclast can take Artificer Armor, which is 2-up save, which we've discussed. Crusader is sweeping, Melter Bombs. So now each Iconoclast could take a Phosphex Bomb. The Phosphex Bomb will come in at AP2, 3-inch blast. It'll have poison +3. It has crawling fire, all right? And that's the rule I was telling you about, where basically you can actually elect to choose to move the pie plate template, all right? So further or away from the model. Okay, and it also has Lingering Death, which means that is going to stick around for like a couple of turns as well. All right. Now, you can also add the Dark Brethren Rite of War to this mix. And this is how, if you kill a successful unit, you can declare that this unit will then get a +1 weapon skill. And that could go up and up. So these guys can get up to weapon skill 5 really, really quick, right? So if you do want to take a big body of these guys, so if you want to take a 10-man squad, for example, and you do want to keep them alive, then you could do that. You know, you could build these guys up. You know, you can have them running around at weapon skill 5 with their AP3 axe rakes and shred, okay? And they become very, 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 very powerful, right? And as I was saying before, you know, it makes you very unpredictable on the board as well, because if you've got even just 1 or 2 squads of these guys in Deep Strike, you know, your opponent's going to be like, oh, what's he going to go for? Where's he going to come down? Is he going to come down? Is he going to come in from reserves as well? All right. Because potentially you see, even though you are fragile, you've only got 1 wound, you have the ability to like attack a plethora of targets. So you could go for his armor, right? You could be doing that. You could go for his infantry. You could be doing that. You could go for his artillery. You could be going for his dreadnoughts if you wanted to, because you got melter bombs, right? So it's really, really, really open. And, you know, it's not very predictable. And that's another massive strength of this unit. The other thing is that this unit can benefit from Corrupted as well. You can add Corrupted, which is a Word Bearers trait to this unit, which comes in, you can add it through Dark Channeling, okay? It essentially grants them Fear 1, so they'll cause Fear 1 on top. They will be immune to fear completely, and then they'll also automatically pass pinning checks and that as well, which is super crazy good, because what that means is like all the stuff that you're trying to do or that you're doing to other units to pin them down, right? You know, people can't do back to you, okay, as easily, right? Now, it will cost you a few points, but you can add them on there. Now, I just want to play emphasis on how important pinning is here, all right? Pinning has the ability to take a unit out of play. Now, if a unit is out of play, that means it's pretty much almost dead, okay, for that turn, right? It's just points. It's all about the math. The unit which is there, right, which is in the points, is not partaking in the battle this turn, so thus it may as well have not have been in the list. So that's big, because you're going to deny your opponent, you know, more of their ability to weather down your numbers. Right? This is what Warhammer's all about. It's like you have a stack of numbers, they have a stack of numbers. The goal is to, you know, get your numbers higher than their numbers by lowering their numbers. And the higher, you know, you get on the stack, the more points you have available to you, the easier it is for you then to sort of whittle your opponent's score down or points down. So pinning is absolutely huge. And like I said at the start of the video, you know, this unit can actually do it twice. Okay, this unit, you know, it can come down, it can deep strike down, bam, pinning test please, everybody 12 inches away. You know, your allies Night Lords, oh great, I just pinned like 3 units. Hey Night Lords, go to town. All your guys now with Bloody Murder get an extra attack, right? Okay, so unbelievably crazy good, right? And then if that just doesn't do it, well, guess what? You've got your hand flamers as well that you can now use, and you could kill a couple of units. And you know what? If you can't kill them, oh well, just pin them, because you remove them from out of the game and they may as well be dead anyway, right? Now, one of the things about this unit, and this is what I think a lot of people miss as well. So you got to remember, like, your opponent, because people say, oh, they like, you know, they die by reactions and Overwatch, and they do. It's one of their biggest weaknesses. But the thing is, if you can control that, you can actually help. This can actually be a unit that will make your opponent spend their reactions, right? So they don't react against something else later on that you want to build up as well, that you want to bring on. Okay, so it's all about having that strategic board control, which these guys can give you for harassment and bullying the other units. Now, the other thing is as well, is that like what I would even consider doing with these guys is take a couple of squads, take 3, 5-man teams, 125 points is. Now, here's the thing. Your opponent can only overwatch or react against one of those units. And this is why I was saying to you before, if I was you, I would keep these units as cheap as possible. Because what it means is this, right? Say you really want something dead. Say there's a squad of like heavy support infantry up the back, okay? Plasma or something. All right? Or Volkite. And you come down, right? You're ready to go. You got 3 squads of 5 of these guys, all separate lined up. Now, all your guys are going to charge these guys, but your opponent, yeah, he might react to you and he might kill one squad. That's 125 points down. But once he's used that reaction, unless he's got something special going on, yep, you reacted against the other squad. No worries. They're dead. They, 125 points off the table now. Oh, boo-hoo. But now your other squad's going to come in and they can only react against one. They come in and they sweep the absolute crap out of these guys, right? And, a heavy support squad is going to be like triple the cost of 2 of these units. So the second unit that you went and you got would have survived because they just would have cleaned house on them, right? With AP3. They don't even get a freaking save, okay? Maybe if there's an apocryphy there, I think, because it's but it might be a strength 5, yeah, because you go up +1 strength, especially if you get the brethren trait and stuff. So, it depends, but generally, look, you're just going to wipe it out, and that's it. Bam, you've had to sacrifice one of your units, but at the end of the day, the boys achieve what they went there to achieve. And that could be like a mission critical strategic unit that they were relying on. That could have been a guys on an objective. It could have been like, as I was saying before, a heavy support squad, or even a las cannon squad. It's like, well, yeah, that las cannon's overwatched, one squad, but they can't overwatch both. Now, the other thing that is really epic with these guys, and I'm going to say it now. So, your flamers have torrent. They're about 9 inches roughly, because when you think about, well, no, more than 9 inches. They work out to be roughly about 12 inches. So you've got 6 inches from the model, and then the flamer plate itself is around about like maybe 6 to 7 inches. Okay, so you've got a lot of range, you've got a lot of distance. Now, one thing you can do, even though they are weak against taking on Terminators, especially like S-tier Terminators and A-tier Terminators, things like that, stuff like Fullamatris, stuff like, Viagna Terminators and things like that, they actually can be a lot stronger than what you think. And I'll tell you why, because yes, they will die in a melee standoff of AP2 weapons. So, if those Terminators have Power Fist or pretty much any other weapon will kill them, right? But here's the thing. Any Terminator units who don't have ranged weapons, and there are plenty of them, like Morlocks, basically, Morlocks are an example of a Terminator unit who might not have ranged weapons. Indomitus armor, Thunderhammers, Storm Shields don't have ranged weapons. Okay, there's a few Terminators here and there, and it might just be the way that your opponents kitted them out. Maybe they got double lightning claws, right? They don't have ranged weapons. So what you do, you could actually use these guys to just sit like 12 inches away and just flame them and pin them, right? And then there you've taken those Terminators on, and you've basically, you haven't killed the Morlock Terminators, okay? But you haven't died yourself, right? And then you're now pinning that unit, taking it out of the game for a turn or two, which is almost as good as killing it. It's then going to force your opponent to come out and deal with your Ashen Circle squad, who is then going to need to come after that unit to stop them from harassing the Terminators, right? But you can do it. Fire Drakes, another example. Morlocks, Fire Drakes. Spoiler alert for one of my next videos. Fire Drakes are in contender for one of the best Terminators in the game. Another video, it's coming. All right. But here's the thing, they've got no range weaponry. So if you sit back with these guys and just flamer the crap out of them and just pin them, they're as good as done. They can't do anything. They can't move. So like, you know, I watched a game, but yeah, whatever you do, don't charge these guys into like Morlocks or whatever. So I was playing a narrative game about a month ago or so, and these guys rocked up, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was remembering from the old days in Horus Heresy version 1, where they had AP2 and that. And one of the guys there, you know, he charged this Ashen Circle into a squad of Morlock Terminators, Iron Hand Morlock Terminators. And I was just like, oh, you know, and the other guy, you know, Alex, he goes like, oh, geez, you know, covers his face. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Nah. You know, he might take a few guys out with this, you know, because AP doing that. Like, I know Morlocks are strong, you know, but like, anyway, I literally turned my head to talk to my mate Matt, and just to ask him, because he's like, oh, you know, can I borrow your measuring tape? I'm just like, yeah, cool. I turn my head, I turn back, and I'm like, where'd the Ashen Circle go? Dead. Full on dead, slammed, completely wiped out in the turn that they attacked. I think Paul EC was playing the Morlocks with his Iron Hands, and he had an Apocryphy in there. So in fairness, the Ashen Circle did 1 wound, and then the Iron Hands ended up using the Primaris Medicae and getting that freaking wound back anyway. I believe that's what's happened. Okay. But the moral of the story is, look, keep your distance. Do not try to charge elite Terminators with these guys. Chances are you're in for a long day, guys. You're in for a very long day. If you like to see your models on the board, I highly recommend like not doing that. Okay, so that was pretty crazy, you know. And this was, by the way, this was a 10-man unit. This was a 10-man unit, and they just got absolutely obliterated by like a 5-man squad of Morlocks. It's just like bang, just like beaten in. Okay, so fragile, 1 wound. Only one of the guys can have a 2-up save as well. So we discussed that a bit before. All right, keep them away from Terminators. They can sort of take Dreadnoughts out a bit with their Melter Bombs. You're going to lose a fair few at least, though. All right, but you can go Dreadnought hunting with them. Okay, we discussed a bit of duty with the HQ. All right, now you can take a Moritat. You can take a Moritat, though, with this squad, and it is an option, because what you can do is you can use your Ashen Circle as a shield, like a body shield, much like I was talking about before about, you know, taking an extra body or two to sort of have a meat shield to ensure that your attacks go through and that. Better than taking the 2-up. But you can actually take a Moritat, use them as a bodyguard. Now, the argument is that the Moritat is still better off going with a Destroyer squad anyway, because that way he synergizes with it more, because he can then shoot and charge and everything like that as well. And then they can shoot as well, because if you're going to take a Moritat with these guys, just a word of caution, you're likely going to have to detach the Moritat, right, at some point. And then so the Moritat can go, you know, do his thing, chuck on Warp Flamers on the Moritat, works sweet. Okay, there's no get hot. So, and then, you know, the Word Bearers can then go stuff something up, and you can also always link them back up later or send them on their way. But it is a option, because both the units have jump packs as well, and, you know, you can shield your Moritat from wounds. Okay, so, yep, so they're not, you know, they're vulnerable to reactions. We discussed that. But here's the thing, you know, everything sort of is. Can't take an Apocryphy, we've discussed it. Okay, they do take a crap load of elite slots, but there are ways around this. So you can expand your slots for the Ashen Circle with one of the Rite of Wars called Last of the Serrated Sun. Okay, it basically allows you to use the Gal Vorbak as troops, and they can actually be compulsory troops. It doesn't say, to my knowledge, that that they can't be compulsory. However, they probably are still not going to get scoring. But essentially, what that will allow you to do, because generally people want to take a whole bunch of Gal Vorbak, and they don't take the Ashen Circle because the Gal Vorbak, they want them for the elite slots. But this will allow you to do that. And what you could do is for the scoring, the line, you can always just take a command squad with a banner that will take up a HQ slot anyway. And then that's one scoring unit you'll have. And then you could take a Herald, right? You could take a Herald, and then you've got like 2 scoring units. And then you'll be able to go to town, and you'll have like, you can have as many Gal Vorbak nearly that you were going to need. And then you can have like, 3 squads of Ashen Circle in the elite slots. Now, what would have been really nice is if these units were a fast attack choice. If these units were a fast attack choice, and I honestly feel as though they probably should have been, that would have been like almost OP, I guess. But yeah, but that's that. Anyway, we've discussed it. Yep, don't chuck it into Terminators. Okay, they could kill Dreadnoughts, but it's not the best. And, so the Moritat could be a HQ, because the HQ must also be corrupted. So you got to make sure that both those units are corrupted to be joined together in that squad. Okay, super fantastic. So a few other little tips here with this unit. I've pretty much mentioned all this already, so I won't double up, but I'll just read through these points just quickly. So don't take an Infernal Pistol, use a Melter Gun, all right? So basically there's no point, because you generally want to be slicing infantry, and you want your Flamer for that. You're then going to need, you've got Melter Bombs, you've got Phosphex Bombs for anything harder, okay? And and I highly recommend keeping the unit cheap. Either run the 5, take Artificer Armor if you really have to, okay? But I probably wouldn't even. I would just take the 5, between 5 to 7, and and even just have like multiple units of 5 or multiple units of 7. Run the Serrated Sun Rite of War, get that happening like that. But I would not be running like 3 10-man squads of these guys. To be honest, I just think that you're kind of putting your eggs too much into one basket with them. Unless you're playing, allied, and, your allies got like heaps of heavy armor and stuff like that in terms of Terminators and things like that as well. Because I guess you are heavy, but yeah. So any more than 5 bodies can start to get redundant as well, because it's only going to, on average, take you so many hits with those Melter Bombs to get the results that you want. When you're adding more units to the stack, you're pretty much just going to be throwing those extra Melter Bombs away, because, you've already killed that Predator, with those attacks. And, with the combined effort of the Flamers, the Hammer of Wrath by 2, the charge attacks, they're going to wipe pretty much everything. Okay, Moritat with Warp Fire Pistols I've covered. Okay, now you can deep strike them. You will get the pinning, but I would highly consider taking these guys up the table, hiding them behind buildings, things like that, and sort of getting them to where you want to go as well tactically, because you can flamer some stuff out on the way as well. And because they have jump packs, you're going to be able to hide them pretty easily behind stuff. You're going to be able to maneuver them around, okay? Or just use deep strike if you don't think that the player's going to be able to react or intercept you. But if you think that, they're, unlike the Content Guard Terminators where they have an invul, with these guys, if they do get reacted on, if they do get intercepted, they are going to friggin' just drop straight away. So look, if you think a deep strike is just too hot, you're just going to get, you're just going to get intercepted to death. Don't do it. Just bring them up another way. Okay. Play the slow game with them. Okay. But they can maneuver and speed around the board, which gives them a bit more, survivability as well. Okay, so the rest of it pretty much went over. Some of the arguments against the unit. So The unit is more expensive in points. Like, I think we've kind of covered that. So people say, oh, 125 points for like an assault squad. Look, it's pretty clear right now. These guys are not an assault squad. Okay, they're nowhere near an assault squad. They're way more powerful than assault squads. Okay, deep striking is dangerous now. It's the same argument all the time. Well, just don't deep strike. Okay, or deep strike multiple units, or snipe out, you know, the augury scanners or things like that with Nemesis bolt weapons. You know, and like I said, with deep strike, if you don't want to do it, guys, just don't risk it. Just run them up. You know, they got jump packs. They'll be there in a turn or two. Okay, I think the Destroyer Squad is a really good option, and if someone said to me, look, you know, oh, I'm not going to run Ashen Circle, I'm going to run Destroyers instead, I'm going to put my Moritat in there, I would probably say, like, if used correctly, that's a pretty solid argument to that, you know? But at the same time, you know, these units are just fun, and, you know, they're just really, really good. They got melter bombs and stuff as well, you know? Your destroyers, you know, you get your rad grenades and stuff like that as well. But just the sheer versatility of this unit, the range of targets, you know, that they can attack, it's just off the point as well. So yeah, and the other argument that I hear about all the time is, oh, the unit's rubbish now because they got nerfed to hell because, you know, they had their AP2 power axes taken away and that. Well, yeah, they did, but, you know, they still got just about everything else. And have a think about, like, you know, the fact that you're now striking at initiative anyway, at AP3 with Shred, all right, which is pretty good. It gets up in there, pretty crazy levels of destruction of these guys. And a lot of versatility as well, a lot. Alright, everybody, so look, I'll leave the video there. I hope you enjoyed this tactical analysis video on the Ashen Circle. We'll get another one up really soon. I think I've got that Alpha Legion list I've still got to do for 30k. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Adam's requested some Death Guard stuff. Don't forget, everybody, subscribe to the channel, turn the bell notifications on, like the video, and if you have any specific Legion unit, okay, or faction unit you want me to review, or any unit you want a little bit more opinion on in the Horus Heresy, please don't hesitate and let me know. I am Stevanius, and I will see you in the next video.